Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I am here with a very, very good friend of mine, Stacy Vaugh. How are you doing today, Stacy?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good, good. Have you had a chance to go outside? It is yucky outside today.
It is very yucky out outside.
Yeah, yeah. And I was telling you earlier, I usually go and do my hair, get my hair done on Saturdays, and not like I got a lot to deal with. But today I walked in, I swear, I thought I walked into church. You know how you come into church late and everybody is seated and you come in and everybody turn and watch you? So
Exactly.
I thought I had to, I said, okay, am I late for service or what? But
So
listen,
how ironic you talk about that because as a pastor kid.
oh, me too. Me too. You know something else we have in common, Stacy? I didn't know that your background was in HR. I didn't know that. So,
My BS degree is in HR.
so we have
Yeah.
something else in common. But listen, I know my audience didn't tune in just to hear us chit chat about hair and all this other stuff. So, but the first thing I want to talk, just to introduce them, is that your company is DUnity, and you all have been in business for what, over 13 years?
Over 13 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And you have about 30 years of experience working with in the federal contracting space.
I started when I was 10, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And then you left and decided that you want to start your own business, or because I know you and Roger, you all are like Batman or Robin, because he retired, right? He retired from the military. And
He
then
did.
you
He
all
retired.
started, okay, then you all
Hmm.
started D Unity.
So when I met Roger, I was in MBA school, and I was a second person hired from a company that won a huge government contract. And he said to me, hire 50 people. And if they're veterans, it's better. So I
Okay.
bugged Roger for a month to come and work for me.
Oh, wow.
He
Amazing.
turned me down, and I kept calling him.
Hmm. Okay.
And as he
Okay.
says, he still worked for me.
Oh, my goodness. Well, maybe he
Yeah.
does.
Um, but what we found in our years of working in government, a lot of small businesses can do what they do, but they are never compliant, or they don't know how to sustain and expand from that point.
Yes,
It
yes.
was like a common theme.
And
And then I consulted for some firms, big firms, to help them with their government division. And the same thing is the government, big companies didn't have compliance set up on how to work with small business. So it was on both sides of the table.
mhm, exactly. And so when you first started out working as a consultant with, under your company and everything, I guess it was very telling for you to work for companies and kind of see all the gaps and some of the loopholes and some of the problems that these businesses had. And so from there, you kind of sound like you kind of specialize in helping them to, get their infrastructure together, but just to be more competitive in the space.
Right. Because at that point, a lot of people don't understand. Government's always been working with small businesses, but they were very selective. They weren't expanding, and they realized they had to figure out some other ways of handling it. And the same with big businesses, is they were using the same old small businesses, and then they would get old, they wouldn't do what they need to do, those kind of things, not handling the challenges, the bonding, those kind of requirements. So then they would say, so who else do we know? And then, as we know, it's like a big trend, procurement, but then but no one understands what procurement really means.
Right. And so if you had, so working, you've been in business for over 30 years, and then you have about 20 years of experience working and you was a contracting officer. Is that correct?
I used to, work for the base commander. And if you are on a military base, he's like the mayor, and he buys everything. He buys food for the soldiers. He'll build buildings, technologies, all that kind of stuff. And so The guy that I took over for had passed away. And so when I took over the position, the government guy thought that guy was doing a great job. But when I went to look at all the compliance, they didn't, he did a lot of things under the rug, shady, that kind of stuff. And so the colonel realized that I was keeping him out of jail.
Mm, okay, okay. And so you took that experience and basically knowing now you see both sides of the coin. You know
I
your
do.
experience from being a contracting officer and understanding how things are on that side, but also leveraging what you've learned as a contracting officer and to use that to help your clients, whether they're small to mid-sized businesses. You were, having using your experience from, I call it from behind the curtain.
Yes. It was a big curtain.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And so now, what one of the other areas that I've seen where small businesses struggle also is in the area of when you think about business development strategies. I see small businesses they struggle in that area too. So take me through I guess you say one of your if you want to call it a case or a case study where you work with one of your clients. You know their end objective is their goal is always to grow their business. To get
Hmm.
that first contract. So take me through an experience where, you worked with one of your clients and, they wanted to achieve this $1 million contract, but the path to that contract wasn't so easy to get there.
Right.
Tell me about that experience and how did you help that client in terms of helping them to create realistic goals, but also setting them up for success?
Right. So one of the things is most businesses don't do an assessment. So we always start with an assessment, kind of see what they have in place, what they need to have in place, and how do we get there to be sustainable and successful.
And when you take a look at this assessment, what are some of the areas that are critical for them to have in place, if you could choose that or say, but what's tell me more about your assessment tool and how you use it to see whether that company is ready to do business with the government.
Yeah, so I call it my fortune teller
Hmm.
piece of paper. So it's a 12 step. We're looking at their website, any other marketing, social, digital, traditional, um, what personnel they have in it. If they are sole proprietor, they've got partners, those kind of things. Are they of added value? Funding, business line of credit. If they want a government contract tomorrow, can they do payroll out of pocket? Do we need to create some systems in place? That kind of stuff. And then bonding, insurance, because as you know, the more contracts are coming out, insurance requirements are going up, bonding requirements, cybersecurity, those kind of things.
Hmm.
And then what's their ultimate growth if they win a $250,000 contract? Because a lot of them don't know. They don't know what that looks like.
Okay. And when you take a company through this assessment, you know, are they surprised by what they have in place or what they
Or what
don't
they
have
don't,
in place?
yes, what they don't have in play. The
Hmm.
other thing that we always find out is what they're marketing to the commercial market cannot be the same as they do in government. I tell them it's a whole different language, it's a different mindset, those kind of things. And so they say, well, I have a website, but if I go in the website and I'm trying to figure out what you do, you're lucky to keep me there for 2 minutes. So most government agency is less than a minute and they want 3 clicks. I want to know what you do. And can I find you on your SAM's registration or the state registration, all those. Because the easier you make it for them, the easier it is for them to make a decision.
Sounds like you just put back on your contracting officer's hat.
I did. Little.
I'm saying, okay, it's really that's it. Usually when I talk to my clients, I said, when you're approaching a contracting officer, a couple of things will happen. They'll look at your business card. A lot of times they'll flip it over to see what's on the back of that business card. And I say, because it's like a mini capability statement. And I said, if they can go ahead and access your website, they're looking for your website to be set up in a way that says you're ready to do business with the federal government.
I'm always about the email. Don't give me Gmail. Don't give me
That's
Yahoo. Don't give
yes.
me AOL. And they're looking at that more and more. And
And
people don't understand it, especially now. Those kind of emails will not come through the security pipelines anymore.
And that could be a whole nother conversation when we talk about cybersecurity
Yes,
certification and being prepared. Your systems are prepared to upload as well as download information from the government. That's a whole nother
that's a
session
whole
in
nother
itself.
conversation. That's probably season two.
I know session two, exactly, exactly. So now that you've had a chance to take a look at the company and you've done your assessment, they realize what some of the strategies are. Walk me through, or walk my audience through, you know, how do you help them to overcome those challenges? So they are, because this is the one thing I tell people about doing business with the federal government. You don't get to move from, like from being an unknown commodity to now all of a sudden you're a known commodity, and you're out there where people are buying your product and services, because there's a path to how you do business with the federal government. So how do
Right.
you help close that gap for them, and help them to develop their business development strategy?
So one of the things that we do that most firms don't do is we do a 100-day plan, and then we work it tailored to their need. So if their marketing is weak, we're spending some time on that and getting it up to par, so that when you're bidding, there's no questions asked. Because in past, we worked with a client, won a $2.5 million contract. His state registration was expired, so they had to go with the next company. So it's the simple things like that. If you don't set up properly, you could really lose a whole perspective of everything, you know?
And what you said is so important, because it may seem like a very simple thing. And perhaps in the private market, in the private sector, they say, oh, you don't have this, oh, you don't have that. Yeah, no big deal. Shaken, it's a deal. But in the federal market, it's not that way at all, because to me, it's just a very systematic system. I also tell people that if you are thinking about doing business with the government, it's not a sprint, but likewise, it doesn't have to be a marathon if
Mm-mm.
take the time to put the strategies in place, those strategies in place, that you need to make sure that you're set up to do business with the government.
Right. So I
Um,
always tell people, like, Roger and I love flying. If you go on a 747 plane, which is huge, as luxury as it is, it takes time to turn it around.
yes.
And that's kind of how I take the federal government.
Mhm.
Because you and I know, if the federal government likes you, they'll give you contracts, enjoy the ride. But understand that they could change their mind. You got to know how to change with it.
Exactly, exactly. So tell me, and this is something I know about you also, is that I know that one of the things that a lot of the things that you all do for your clients, but also I know that some of the programs and coaching that you offer is to equip them to do things for themselves, for the business to be able
Mm-hmm.
to do things for themselves. So take me through, when you think about business development strategies, some people are just really freaked out by that. They're really freaked out
Yeah.
by, picking up the telephone, talking to that contracting officer. But how do you prepare your clients to reach out to those contracting officers or OSTABUs or small business advocates, and be prepared to have that conversation, and have the confidence to have that conversation?
So believe it or not, this is part of the HR. I do, like, you're interviewing for a job. So I'm mock tail it. So they have to say, hey, this is my conversation. And I say, what are you going to wear? They don't believe how important that is. Or your demeanor of shaking your hand, or even having a little smile or a little joke, just building that relationship, just something simple. During with COVID, a lot of them are working from home. So government people are not used to that. So sometimes it's sharing your own experience with them kind of opens some doors in that conversation.
Exactly.
But I also talk about when they get certifications, they all get interviewed. And that interview is so key for them to stamp and say, you're a service disabled vet, or you're woman owned or minority owned. Because it is personality driven. I hate to say it.
Well,
You
it
know?
is. And this is something too that, when I talk to my clients, I just tell them, I said, a lot of people, because I write proposals, they said, Renzi, I know that if you write this proposal, that will put us in the top three. And it's not as simple as that, because yes, that's important, but everything is still about relationships. People
It's still
connect with,
about
yeah, it's
relationship.
it's it's a person to person, and that contracting officer, they, of course, they follow the FAR and all of that, but part of it is that you have to be comfortable and understand how to build rapport. And and the other side of it also is that just you have to build that relationship. It's not like shake hands, thank you ma'am, and that's it, slam
Right.
bam, thank you. It's not like that. You have to build rapport. And I don't know whether this is true, and you can tell me this from behind the curtain, but what I have experienced is that a lot of times when you're talking to contracting officers, that first relation, that first connection, that's it. It's a first connection. But I think they also assess you on whether you're going to come back, whether you're going to stay in contact with them, whether you're going to take the initiative to send them information or to find those ways to stay in contact with them, because I think that that's a way of showing that you're serious about doing business with them.
Yeah, it's being pleasantly persistent, but also walking in there and not saying, are you going to give me a government contract? But say, hey, how can I help you take something off your desk?
Say that again. Say that again.
When you go to a government person, go in the fact of not getting a government go in is how can I take something off your plate so that you're successful?
Exactly, exactly. Because I won't tell you how many stories that I've heard. And I think sometimes people who are in this profession as business development, there's a notion out there that when you go and you sit down and when you have a chance to sit down, whether it's by Zoom now or whether it was face to face, there's a notion out there is that when you get there, you supposed to say, hey, give me a contract. I'm ready for you to give me a contract. And I'm not sure if people understand how that is such a turnoff. Like, the a contracting officer, their responsibility is to give you a contract. I've heard that
Well,
story so many
they
times.
write the check.
Exactly.
Really, if you want to have a true meeting, I'm always asking, who's the program manager? Because they're the one that's managing those programs. The person who writes the check doesn't often know what that program is.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. With your clients in helping them to be successful in the federal space, I also know that you also help clients in doing state government as well as doing
Mm-hmm.
business in the commercial market. Are
Yes.
your success formula, is it slightly different for those other two markets, or there are certain things that the secret sauce kind of stays the same across any
Um,
industry?
it has a little bit of a change. State and local, sometimes it's about the dollars. So, but don't undersell yourself, but say knowing that you can grow one. Like we were on a contract grant that it came in low. The people that brought us in said, look, this is how much the grant was written. Can you work with us? And we were pushing for more and more money. We did.
Mhm.
That's what you have to realize in the long term. And that contract is 6 years old right now.
Wow. Exactly. And what would you tell your my audience about you, even though we may want to start out with $1 million contract, but
It's
there
a
may
million
be
dollar headache.
okay.
It is, because I have to speak from Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. Those contracts are a 2 to 3 year audit project. So
Wow.
if you're a small business or micro small business, $1 million headache, which is $1 million contract, means that you're gonna have to hire the right people so that when you do get audited, there's no questions asked.
Hmm.
That's
So
a step up.
what tell my audience about simplified acquisition procurement. What
So
is that?
simplified acquisitions are the 250,000 contract that are with a credit card purchaser.
Hmm.
It's so important to say that you take credit cards. Now, this is not PayPal, and this is not Zillow or any of those kind of things, or Cash App. This is, hey, I'm the government. I have an American Express card. I want Renzi to do $250,000 worth of training. Those audits are much easier, and it's a great way to get your feet wet, because
Yes.
those are, you could do 4 or 5 times a year, and you'll get up to a million way quicker than you will to a million.
Hmm.
Because the first $1 million contract, you're spending probably 25,000 just on proposal writing, at least.
At least.
That does not include your auditing. So add another 25,000, which is low, by the way. So you're spending $50,000 just on the top of that.
So simplified acquisition is one of the, I guess you say, methods in terms of, getting, looking at the easy access to do contract um, opportunities. But what about teaming? If I am
Oh,
a
I love
company,
teaming. I love teaming. I
Mhm.
wish more people would do it. I know a lot of people have been burned, but when you can build a team, that makes it more appealing for government people. Because if I'm a
So
sole
proprietary.
proprietor
Mhm.
and I am not available to the government, they don't think I'm available. That
Yes.
means I can't do the contract. But if I bring in Renzi and say, hey, Renzi, I'm going to be part-time, you're full-time, you got to be the point of contact for government, we're both successful at that point.
Exactly. And it's a way for you to build capability and capacity, and
Yes,
still maintain that flexibility in terms of
exactly.
how your size.
Right.
Sometimes small companies are conflicted to say, you know what, I love being a small company, but it's the other side of that is, being able to have the capability and the capacity to perform and to make sure that you don't pose, risks to the government because of your size. So I think teaming is one of the ways in terms of how you can, I guess you say, close that gap and to
Well, and you don't want to do it all,
exactly.
as a small business. I mean, a lot of us have to be the HR. Now we have to be the technology person. Now we have to do the compliance. Government doesn't want you to see you do it all either.
No, and that's what I think that's one of the things I love about SBA and the federal space. I think it is designed to encourage people to work together.
Exactly.
That has been my experience, is that it is
Yeah.
designed to bring, people to the table with you as opposed to you being able to go alone by yourself. So, and now I want to switch hats with you
Okay.
because a lot of our conversation has been around your expertise, but you're also a business owner. So what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I would like to find out from you is that when if you had to go back when you and Roger y'all started your business, you had to go back and say, no, in those early days, what was one major mistake you made? And what were some lessons you learned from that mistake?
Um, y- we used our 401k to start our business. So Roger and I had worked overseas, made great money, put a 401k together. Now, this day and age, 401ks have products where you can borrow against it and not be penalized.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the number one thing. Because money is the key element for everything. It's not bad, but you got to know how to leverage it. And then the other thing is building a business line of credit. Those are the two that I wish if we could have done again, I would have done that differently. Because the first 3 years, it was a struggle. It
Mm-hmm.
was a struggle to get everything together, finding teaming partners, bidding, marketing, website, because we update our website at least once a year,
Yes, that's important. That is
you
so
know?
important.
That should be part of your compliance no matter what.
Yeah.
The other thing is we look at our spend, that overhead, so that we're not unrealistic about that. We look at how much money we're bringing in. Are we bringing in more contractors? Are we doing more of the legwork?
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. Because at the end, as a business owner, you want to be not in the business, you want to be working on the business.
This is right, exactly. And I think sometimes when we are entrepreneurs, founders, and we get, just starting out, we're used to wearing all of those hats. But the other side of it is that, at some point, you got to have a strategy in place to say, how do you take that leap, and how do you transition from being the founder, the entrepreneur that's wearing all the hats, to now you are the CEO who is leading a enterprise, but understanding that you're getting the work done through others, through using your influence and leveraging that, versus you trying to wear all of those hats. And sometimes I think when we're small businesses, we get conditioned to
Mm-hmm.
doing it all. And even when we have the chance to offload some of those responsibilities and give it to other people, or other people who are part of your leadership team, we still hold on to it. And I think when we do that, we it's not allowing the business to grow and to flourish. And I've seen it
Right.
over and over and over again. I've seen it so much.
Well, and I think the other problem, we've had this conversation too, Renzi, is when to add a contractor. You can't stay up all night to write a proposal. You got to add a contractor who knows that space.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the person do the website if you don't know what content to write. You got to know when
Exactly.
to hand it off. I think those are the
Exactly.
things we have to surrender and understand. We may not make as much margin, but it's more peace.
It is. And the other side of, and that's part of the reason why I wrote the 12-step signature coaching program. It's a peer-to-peer coaching program for CEOs, because I've seen this happen over and over and over again. Is that in order for your business to grow, you have to grow. And
Exactly.
we don't have the luxury at this stage, or even if you've been in business 5 or 10 years, we don't have the luxury to say, we can separate ourselves from our business and our business is separated from us. We just don't have that luxury.
We
And one of
don't.
the things I tell CEOs, is that it's so important that you understand that you're an integral part of the business, and when you're healthy, your business is healthy.
Right.
And I don't know how to say it any different than that. But the 12-step signature coaching program is not about me having all of the answers, but it's an opportunity for the CEOs, to learn from their peers, to see what they're doing right, to see what's going well, but also to learn from each other's mistakes as well. Because I think if we had an opportunity to learn from each other, that's valuable, information that we can leverage. But also, if we understand that, sometimes the problems that we have, you know, other CEOs have the same problem. So, because sometimes CEOs, we call it the ivory tower, sometimes we get stuck in that ivory tower, and we think that some of the issues or some of the concerns that we have is isolated to us. And that is not the case at all. And so I think we also learn by understanding too that, there's someone else, there's another business owner who has the same problems that I have. So I think it's a
Right.
really good opportunity for us to learn, but then understand what your strengths are too.
Yeah,
So
I always talk about strength and weaknesses.
yes.
I,
Hmm.
I joke about this. I'm only 4'11". That's always going to be my weakness.
Hmm.
So some things I can overcome, some things you can't, and some
Yeah,
things you have to understand that.
exactly. And understand too, as the CEO, understand what your weaknesses are, but you can mitigate those weaknesses by surrounding yourself with people who have strengths that you don't have. Okay. So like you, Stacy, I may be an asset to you, but I don't think I can reach that shelf too much higher than you. But someone who may be much taller than both of us to say,
Right,
okay, yes, how do we help each other to do things like
right,
that? So, but like you said, understanding what your limitations are,
right,
but understanding also how to be resourceful and how to mitigate those limitations too.
right. Yeah. So yeah, being a CEO is no joke,
Mhm.
but also I can get to the point where I'm trying to write myself out and create somebody else.
And
And I think a lot of businesses owners don't do that.
you should want to duplicate yourself, but here again, this is one of the things that come up in some of my coaching sessions is, having a level of trust, where
Hmm.
you're you where you have those, where you feel that you can trust that person, to duplicate yourself. Because if you're not able to duplicate yourself in the leaders that you have, or it could be your key personnel, you have to be able to duplicate yourself, because if you can't, then you're not allowing yourself to be about the business versus being in the business. You have to be
Right,
able to do that. And my thing is, if you have people around you that you feel that you don't trust, that is either a concern or something that you need to address for yourself. Or if you have people around you that you can't trust, then you need to look at those individuals and to say, is it time for me to help that person exit the company if you can't trust them? But you
right,
can't be in business and be in business to say that you're in business alone, as opposed to
right.
saying that whether it's through your relationships, whether it's through key leaders in your organization, Jesus had 12 disciples, okay? so
Exactly. Exactly.
so
Like
so
I am a resourcer queen.
yeah.
If I don't do it, I'll send you somebody else.
Exactly. And I think that that's how we help each other. That's how we build bridges, where we can
Right.
extend ourselves to others, because I feel like what we put out is exactly what we get back. Okay.
Yes,
If
I
there
totally
is a
agree.
if there's a nugget that you could leave share with my audience that has been something that you rely on, when you need that to be, centered, or to come back to the center, what would be that nugget that you would leave my audience
Focus
with?
on the one thing that you want to sell to the government, or focus on the one thing that you want to talk to them about. Because if you tell them I'm a speaker, or I'm an author, and I sell government hardware, and then, oh, I make clothes, they don't know
Yeah,
and
like,
understand all that.
yeah, follow the moving dot.
Yeah. Say one
Exactly.
thing, do it well,
Mhm.
master it. Because then they'll ask you, oh, yeah, do you do training? Because if you look at what I do, I never talk about speaking. I never talk about any other stuff. I talk about training.
Mhm.
I talk about educating. That's what government people know me as.
Mhm.
But they often ask me to come in and speak. It's an
Yes.
afterthought.
Mhm.
It's not the primary.
Okay. So if my audience want to get in contact with you, how do they reach you?
So they can reach us on the website. It's DUnityGroup.com, with the dash, without the dash. They work both. And our phone number is 678-701-8495. And you can email us on team at d-unitygroup.com. And you can text them that phone number too. And then we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the good social medias. We're always looking to give good feedback, those kind of things. I love giving a 30-minute consultation just so they can get an idea what they may need to do.
Mhm,
I have
mhm.
several people go, hey, thanks for the consult. I'll come back to you. And that's probably why we've been in business as long as we have.
Well, yeah, and everybody is not your client, and you're
Not
not for
everybody, yeah.
everybody. Yes, exactly, exactly.
Because you got to put this in your budget.
You have to, exactly. So, Stacy, this has been lovely.
It's been fun.
Yes, this has been fun, and I think my
Long
audience
overdue.
long overdue, and there will be another session because, like you said, I think one of the other areas that I would like for you to help people to understand is, there's a technical side to understanding government and that kind of stuff, and helping them to understand, if there are resources out there to help you to understand how the government do business and the policies and all of that they follow. I think that that would be also be a worthwhile conversation because doing business with the government is so different than doing business in the public sector. It's so
Oh,
different.
yes.
Yeah. So
But I will say this,
mhm.
some big public sectors are harder than government agencies sometimes too.
Yes, yes, and I think the cool point that you just made is that you can't get locked into thinking that it's one way or the other. You have to be flexible, and either way, you have to know your stuff. You have to know the audience that you're doing business with, and if you and you have to be prepared. You
Yeah,
have to be prepared. But I think it will be helpful for them to understand that if there are, you want a contract and there are technical issues or things happening with the contract, what are some tools and resources that are available to you that could be helpful in helping you to understand, how, if you're faced with those kind of issues, here's some tools or resources that you can
right,
use to help you to keep to make sure that you're representing yourself and what's in your best interest, but also just sometimes to let the government know that you know how to do business with them.
yeah,
Good.
definitely, definitely.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your
You're
time. This has
welcome.
been a blast.
Of
Next,
course.
yes, yes, the next time, hopefully, it won't be this nasty, yucky weather that we're dealing with. And I would love to explore an opportunity for us to do a webinar for
Yes,
our
definitely.
audience
I
too.
love that.
Yes, I would too. So listen, thank you so much for your
You're
time,
welcome.
and it's been a
We'll talk
blast.
soon.
We will talk soon.
All right. Take care.